Have you ever seen a bass hit your lure when you're reeling it back in? If so, you're gonna love this technique. During the post-spawn, the fishing can get tough. They're recovering from the spawn and they'll start to spread out. This bait has a lot of drawing power, but it's subtle. It floats and sinks, and it drives post-spawn bass insane. You can wacky rig it or you can Texas rig it. You can throw it in heavy cover and you can throw it in open water. Either way, the bass just can't stand it. Hey, BassGeek here, and on this channel, we like to talk about new baits and techniques that are gonna help you catch more bass and have a damn good time doing it. Now, today, we're gonna be talking about something that I love to throw, and I've had some great times throwing it. The one tournament that we came very close to winning was my first tournament. I got to fish it with Mr. Tim Saylor, the ledgehead man himself. And I think we missed it by like 1/100th of a pound. It's kind of my fault. I lost 2 3-pounders, I think, that day on Douglas. But all that being said, I love to throw a floating worm. And I'm going to be showing you today a couple of different types of floating worms, a couple of different colors of floating worms, how to rig them, where to fish them, how to retrieve them, and what you should do once you have that bass on the line. So a ton of different companies make floating worms. I'll put a link to some of my favorites in the description. I know there's the original floating worm, which I'm a huge fan of. That's what we almost won that tournament with, and we almost won it on a color called Sherbert. Now this is actually one of those original floating worms right there, and I'll put links in the description to all of these baits and all the stuff that you see in this video. It'll be to Tackle Warehouse, so make sure you click on that link in the description. It does help us tremendously because we don't sit in our office or sit in our garage when we talk about baits. We're out here on the water filming this for you all, and we're out here testing these baits out to show you how they work. But like I was saying, tons of companies make these worms. These are both from Bass Munitions. Now, this is one of probably the most favored colors when it comes to largemouth right here, and this is called methylate, and this is called bubblegum. Now, there's another bubblegum worm that I don't have with me today, and it's basically a stick bait. It's by Strike King. It's in the Z2. I don't even know if they still make it anymore, but it is a bubblegum. It is a Z2. It's basically their like a Laztec stick bait worm, and that thing is amazing. It's got some great action to it. So there's 2 things that you're going to do to give this bait a little bit of weight, because I know the name is floating worm, but you do actually want to get it to sink a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a swivel in, because they can have a lot of line twist on them. Basically what we do is we just cut off a little piece of line. I'm going to set this to the side for now. So we're going to take and pass the main line through. And again, I'm just going to tie the old pitsine knot there. Go around about 5 times through the loop, pull it all down, moisten your tag in. Now we're going to take your leader, do the same thing, but pass it around. Can't really spin it this time. 4 or 5 times. Come back up through your loop. And again, pull down, moisten, tighten, slide down, and cut that leader. Now when it comes to hooks, I like an oversized hook. A 5/0 offset worm hook to a 6/0 offset worm hook. I don't recommend using a EWG or a straight shank, and I'll show you why here in just a second. But you want that heavier gauge wire so that it also helps the floating worm sink. And we're going to tie that same pitsing knot. Come through that top loop. Moisten and pull down. And again, cut your tag in. Now, depending on how big the bass are where you are, this is a pretty big worm. I think it's 8 inches. Some of them are a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down just that first half to make it just a touch shorter. So I'm just going to cut it right above the egg sac. Because we're around a lot of smallmouth today. So if you're around a lot of smallmouth and spots, if you've got a bigger worm, you can cut it down. You don't want to kill that tail action too much though. Then we're going to come down. And one of the keys to me is always making sure you go in a little bit farther than you would a normal worm. You want it sticking out here so that it's got a little turn to the head. So I'm going to push up, come straight out the belly. We're going to get it up there well above that knot. And then this version, we're going to Texas rig. We'll make sure we feel it just barely sticking out. And there you have your floating worm rig. Now I'll show you how to fish this in just 1 minute. So this one, we're actually going to rig up wacky rig. So this is a mustad hook here. It's a Nico. I like it. It's a 2/0. It's a little bit bigger hook. We're going to pass it through. And again, we're just going to tie that pitsing. Come through the top. Moisten, tighten, pull down. Cut it. And what we're going to do with these, no, they're not elastic. I don't like to put the rubber bands on them because it pushes it, in my opinion, the wrong way. So I'm just going to go straight through the seam and out the other side. Now I want, again, a little bit of weight to my hook because, again, yes, it is a floating worm, but I do want it to sink. All right, so let's talk about the Texas rig style. Now, with the Texas rig style, I like a little bit of a stiffer rod, a little bit of a heavier rod. I'm gonna throw it on a bait caster. You could throw it on a spinning reel or a spinning combo, but if you're gonna throw it into some heavy cover, like what's over here, then you might want to go with something that's got a little more backbone to it. This is a Fitzgerald Versa. It's basically the same rod that I use for my jerk baits. So it is a 7-foot medium. I think it's a moderate fast tip, so I can still get a pretty good cast with it. And I've got it actually teamed up with my Fitzgerald VDL 10. This is a 8:1 to 1. I like a higher speed gear ratio, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the retrieve. But I also combo this, and this is actually canines fluoro, so they're co-poly. It's neutrally buoyant, so I like that to be able to get the worm to sink a little bit more. It's got a little bit of stretch, not too much. I don't like it on braid because, again, we're trying to get this worm, I know it's called a floating worm, but you're actually trying to get it to sink a little bit. And again, we'll talk about why in the retrieve in just a few minutes. But that's the combo I like to set up. I've generally, with this line-wise, it's going to be 12 to 14 pound test. So, and that's really going to depend on how quick I want to get it to drop. So the other rod, reel, and line combo that I like to use for the wacky is just a spinning combo. Generally, I won't even put a swivel on here because just with the wacky rig, you're just not going to get that much line twist out of it. But this is the Cashin Z2. So this is the second version of the new Cashin rod. Now this rod's made 100% in America, even the blank, which I love, and I think it retails for only like 135 bucks. That's their bait casters too, I want to say. I don't know, but for sure on that. I know these are. Now this is a 7-1 medium light fast action. I like the length of it. I can be accurate with it. I've got that coupled with a Pfluger President reel. And on here, I've got 12-pound test monofilament. Now again, you could use the canine co-poly, and I've got a 10% off discount for that right here. So let's talk about fishing it weedless first. This, and again, the reason why I'm going to throw it on a bait caster is going to be where I'm going to throw it right in the middle of the garbage. I mean, like the crap behind me back here. And I'm going to twitch it. Now, it's called a floating worm because it does float, but you don't want it to float. What you actually want it to do is you want to be able to skip it or just cast it over there. And if you're a beginner, don't worry about skipping it in. I will tell you, being able to skip it in, sometimes make that little will help you get a few more bites. It's kind of like a calling, you know, ringing the dinner bell, letting them know there's maybe something going on, fleeing, get their attention. But it can be extremely hard to skip on the bait caster. So a lot of times just get it over there. And what you're going to do is you're going to let it start to sink. You're going to let it sink just out of sight, and then you're going to give it a couple of twitches. Stop, let it sink just out of sight, and then give it a couple of twitches. And a lot of times what'll happen when you give it those twitches and that it has this erratic darting action, that bass is going to come up and you're going to see it crush that worm. So be ready. It is going to startle you the first time you ever see it. Don't set the hook too early. Give it just a second. Once he's got the hook and he turns, set the hook on him. Pull him up out of that cover, get him out of there. Trust me, I think a floating worm may be one of the funnest bites you'll ever have. Now, one thing I will say about this, it's target fishing. Again, you're not going to go down the bank. You're really going to target lay downs. You're going to target areas. You're going to target fry. Fry in the post spawn is one of the best ways to fish this. So if you're in an area where there's a lot of bass that have spawned, this is the next thing you pick up. Once those males are guarding fry and once those females are sitting in the trees working their way back out to the main lake. Now, one of the things I like to use, because a lot of times if I'm fishing around maybe say an isolated piece of wood or something to that effect, or a bush that I can work around the outside, because remember what I said, this is loud. And what I meant by loud was the colors are very loud. So they're going to draw bass to them. I have drawn bass out of huge bushes just working a wacky rig version around the outside. And this is really one of my favorite ways to do it. Again, you can skip this so much easier on a spinning combo. And if you need to adjust the fall, what you'll do is just size up your hook. So if you want to go with a worm hook, something a little heavier gauge, you'll get a little quicker fall and you can work it a little bit faster. I've fished this for years and they don't care about the hook. They're so focused in on that twitchy little worm and that crazy color. You could almost put a gaff on it, literally, and they probably wouldn't care. If they're on it, they're on it. Again, you're going to fish it the same way. You're going to throw it out there. You're going to skip it out there. This, you're going to work around the cover, not so much right in the thick of it. And you're going to let it sink. You're going to twitch it up until you just barely see it and let it sink out of sight. And that's how you're going to work it back to you. And like I said, a lot of times it's as good as a topwater bite because you are going to see that bass just come up and turn on it. Good set of polarized glasses are going to help. Links to that in the description. And again, set the hook straight up. You're going to use a little lighter wire hook on this and fight them, get them into the boat, you know, thumb or net. Geeks, I'm telling you, a floating worm, and it doesn't have to be a bright color. Like if you're in ultra clear water, I have actually taken some floating stick baits in green pumpkin. And you know, you can almost do the same thing with a Senko, rigging it weightless. You can use about anything you want. Like I said, you just have to get the sink rate right, and it needs to be a nice slow sink rate. You're not looking for a bunch of twitchy action. It's just real subtle. But if you want another great bait for the spawn to post spawn transition, get out of that post spawn funk, make sure you go check out this video right here. Otherwise, questions, comments in the comment section below. You geeks know I love to talk about fishing with you. Like it if you like it. Make sure you ring that bell. Be part of the 100% Watch Squad, or whatever percentage you can be, because we really need your help right now, geeks. You geeks rock.